Written by UnderdonetoastHorror. I have an affinity for quaint towns, and I've discovered over time that they often harbor more captivating tales than meet the eye. Yet, some stories are best left buried. Consider my wife's hometown in eastern Idaho, located just across the border from Utah. While it may not initially boast grandeur, numerous visits to her family allow me to complete the 7 Wonders of Preston. Admittedly, it's not as enchanting as it sounds. Rather, it's a collection of peculiar and mysterious features that I was told about. From a small mountainside cave sheltering a family of snakes, to an abandoned structure concealing the remnants of a cow in its basement, and even an old and broken pioneer home washed away in a flood. Each story possesses its own charm, but my personal favorite revolves around a train car perched atop one of the hills. In my mind, it stands as the most random and perplexing object. The nearest train track is miles away, and I couldn't fathom why it's positioned in the middle of nowhere. Although I've glimpsed it countless times during drives, I've never bothered to trek to it and explore its contents. Inquiring about the train car with the locals led to dismissive responses. Either they claimed ignorance about what I was talking about, or admitted they hadn't pondered its existence. "It's on private property, but I'm fine with going with you," my wife assured me. "That property is over 100 acres, so it's not like anyone would see us walking to it. And even if someone did, no one would really care." During our visit to my relatives earlier this year, we hopped into my car and set out towards it. The road twisted and turned until we drove down an unattractive dirt path leading to the base of the hill. The dirt path leading to the train car was lined with patches of wildflowers, their vibrant colors contrasting with the rustic landscape. My wife, with a thoughtful expression, shared snippets of her childhood memories in Preston, adding a personal touch to the journey. The hot sun bore down on me as I stepped out of the car onto the ground. The unfamiliar crop leaves around us glistened, likely from the expansive irrigation sprinkler system now in the distance. My wife's expression soured slightly, realizing the uphill trek she'd have to make in her 6th month of pregnancy. I suggested she stay in the car with the AC and her phone to indulge in Facebook funnies. "It's okay. I've been stuck inside all day, so I probably need the exercise." As I led the way towards the hill, I gazed at the train car just up ahead. It was yellow, with only small trees in the area scattered around it. I pondered. Finally, I get to see this thing up close. I wonder if it'll be empty, like a large boxcar used for storage. That would certainly be a letdown. By the time the incline subsided, we were panting and wishing we hadn't left our water in the car. Because of the summer season, the grass was scattered in patches, allowing a clear picture of what lay around the yellow train car. Strewn across the ground were various metal scraps and wooden plates, along with a large rusted propane tank. While I wouldn't say the train car was in good shape, I was surprised at how intact it actually was. There was some chipped paint and rusted bits, and planted on one side of the train cars were 9 windows and the words, "The Milwaukee Road," with the number 124 just beneath. Under the train car lay its wheels, tubes, and canisters of intricate train machinery. The train car itself was just over uneven ground with a small divot, allowing us to stand level with the glass panes. I tried the door that was closest to us at first, but it had a thick padlock latched on that I knew wasn't coming off. My excitement began to dwindle as I realized there might not actually be a way in, and that I would have to suffice peeking through the hazy windows instead. We walked to the other side, and while the door was locked, it did contain a small circular window without glass. I turned to my wife and smiled. Catching on to what I was thinking, she said, "You're going to try and get in that? Good luck." "I guess I should have worn jeans today," I replied. Needing something to lift me higher, and not wanting my wife to hurt herself, I found an old paint can to stand on. There was no lid, so after dumping out the murky water, I struggled to balance atop while also stretching my right leg enough to get into the window pane. After at least a minute, I was finally able to get my entire right leg inside, and with that, I was able to pull the rest of my body in, narrowly avoiding a fall straight onto the floor. Unfortunately for myself, the inside entryway was covered in bird poop. "Ah, crap!" "Literally. my wife said as she poked her head in. I wiped my hands on my pants and looked around. I was standing in a narrow hallway with a door leading to a kitchen on my right. Well, here we go. Entranced by the enigmatic whispers of the train car's narrow corridor, I moved cautiously, as if stepping through the pages of a forgotten history. The kitchen, a time-worn theater of neglect, revealed peeling ceilings, a canvas of dirt and dust on the floor, and an inconspicuous concrete block, all conspiring to create an air of surreal abandonment. A weathered sign on the kitchen wall, barely holding on to its plea for hand washing, hinted at a bygone era. Chrome metal stoves and cupboards stood like sentinels of the past, while random utensils and plastic bags lay strewn, weaving a tale of a once bustling life now swallowed by silence. Walking through the kitchen area opened into a large room which took up the width of the train car. The floor of the room held an ugly blue-green carpet, and tables and chairs were arranged haphazardly. The old blue curtains on the windows allowed feeble rays of light to penetrate into the dimly lit expanse. There were a few items strewn about that hinted at someone living here, although none of it looked like it was from any recent activity. There were fly traps hanging from the ceiling and small pieces of garbage littered across the floor. A large, dirty mattress sat in the corner, with a small amount of hair sitting next to it. Someone had definitely lived here, but it looked long abandoned. Driven by curiosity, I explored the cupboards, uncovering dusty papers and some old attire. One letter I came across had the date April 11th, 1974, hiding underneath the fold across the top. And after reading a few sentences, I found it discussed inventory aboard the train. I came across another closet towards the end of the train car and decided to step inside. It was musty and empty for the most part. I dug through the top shelves, hoping to find something exciting, a trinket that could serve as a souvenir for my efforts. As I was standing on my toes, the door suddenly slammed behind me. I have heard doors that have slowly creaked shut and doors that have been blown shut by a sudden gust of wind. And that was neither. That was a person shutting the door. And now I was standing in the black. At first I stood there frozen. After a moment when the shock had passed, I grabbed the handle and pushed. The door wasn't budging. Adrenaline suddenly shot through my body, causing my hairs to rise and my skin to crawl. Am I in danger? Is someone living here, angry at me for trespassing to their makeshift home? I decided to try to reason with whoever was out there. Hey man, I'm sorry I came inside. I thought it was just an empty train. I'll just leave. I didn't take anything. No response. I turned on my phone flashlight so I could see and pushed harder against the door. Hello? Seriously, man, let me out of here. I said I was sorry. Still, no reply. And then a myriad of noise began to come through the door. Chatter. Chatter from groups of people. The soft hum of concert music and clattering silverware. I tried again, and this time, the door opened. My eyes widened as the once desolate and abandoned train car had undergone a remarkable transformation. The narrow corridor, once haunted by the echoes of neglect, now buzzed with life. The time-worn theater of neglect had given way to a vibrant scene of bustling activity. The peeling ceilings and dirt-covered floor of the kitchen were replaced by gleaming surfaces and sparkling cleanliness. The ugly blue-green carpet was still there, but now it was clean and glowing. Dining tables and chairs were neatly arranged, occupied by a diverse group of people engaged in lively conversations. The feeble rays of light from the old blue curtains were enhanced by the warm glow of modern lighting fixtures. The air was filled with the aroma of delicious food being prepared in the transformed kitchen. I stood there, mouth agape, when something more terrifying caught my eye. The windows. It was dark outside, and small glimpses of trees across a vast landscape of grass whisked past at incredible speed. The train was in motion, and I could hear the gentle turning of the wheels, feeling the vibration under my feet. My heart raced, pounding against my chest like a trapped bird. The surreal transformation of the train car and its sudden movement sent a shockwave through my senses. Panic gripped me and I stumbled backward, colliding with the door frame. What the? My words were a stammered whisper, lost in the cacophony of the lively scene around me. The people at the dining tables continued their conversations, seemingly oblivious to my bewilderment, except for one man who gave me a look as if to say, "What's his problem?" I scanned the room, desperately trying to make sense of the inexplicable reality I found myself in. Approaching the nearest group, I interrupted their animated discussion. "Excuse me, can someone tell me what's happening? Where am I? How did this train start moving?" I was met with puzzled glances and raised eyebrows. A woman with silver hair looked at me as if I were a misplaced prop in a play. The man just across from her had neatly parted black hair, a thin mustache, and a well-tailored suit. "Are you feeling okay?" the woman asked, concern etching her features. "You're on the dining car, dear. We're on the journey to Cincinnati. Did you forget where you're seated?" The pit in my stomach deepened. I could feel everyone's eyes on me now, but I didn't care. I needed to find a way off this train, to return to the familiarity of Preston, to my wife. A collective murmur rippled through the passengers, and I seized the opportunity to approach a member of staff walking down the aisle. "Excuse me," I pleaded, my voice wavering. "Can you please tell me where we are? I need to get off this train." The car attendant regarded me with an unreadable expression. "We only left Louisville an hour ago, and it'll be a while before we reach the end of the line. And then you'll need to disembark with the others. I'm afraid there are no stops between here and there, though. Is there something I can help you with?" A sense of dread gripped me as the attendant's words settled in. Louisville? That place was far from the quiet hills of Preston. I have to be dreaming. There's no other option, I thought to myself. Frantically, I searched for an exit, my eyes darting around the now lively dining car. I pushed past the employee towards the car entrance I had come through. Desperation fueled me as I pushed through the crowded dining area, my gaze fixed on finding an escape. The movement of the train only intensified my anxiety. I reached the door, which now had the small window intact, and I attempted to pull it open. The handle wouldn't budge. The door was locked. I jiggled it, kicked it, and even pounded on it with my fists, all to no avail. The attendant quickly came up behind me and laid his hand on my arm. "Sir, I'm afraid moving in between cars is not permitted while the train is in motion. Please, have a seat here. I can lend you mine next to the kitchen until we can get you some help." "No, what is this? Where is my wife?" The train suddenly jolted, throwing everyone into disarray. Wine glasses and plates flew off the tables, and the passengers, who'd been engaged in casual discussions just moments ago, now clutched the seats and looked around with wide-eyed bewilderment. The attendant and I both lost our balance, and he stumbled backwards onto the ground. I was able to quickly get a hold of a railing. Confusion and panic spread like wildfire among the passengers in the dining car. The train was slowing down at an incredible pace, a pace that I knew was not normal. The train car fell into an anxious hush as everyone exchanged fearful whispers, the echoes of their trepidation bouncing off the dimly lit walls. The train halted to a full stop, plunging the passengers to an unsettling stillness, and a palpable sense of dread settled onto my mind. The kitchen doors opened to reveal several kitchen staff members looking dazed and confused, some now with various sauces and chunks of food attached to their uniforms. The car attendant slowly stood up, holding the back of his head on the left side. Everyone, is anyone hurt?" After a moment without response, he continued. "No? Please, stay seated. I'm going to go check things out at the front of the train. Please, stay where you are." He then moved past me and unlocked the door, walking to the next car while closing the door behind him. For only a moment, I was able to see the next train car in front of ours was also a dining car. Everyone pressed up against the windows, trying to get a glimpse as to what was going on. I followed the attendant to the next car, but he didn't notice me before he continued on to the one after that. Like the last train car, everyone was staring out into the dark, trying to figure out what was going on. That's when a smaller boy, probably around the age of 11, said, "I see something out there." Most of the group stood up, pushing each other to look. "I don't see anything," people muttered to each other. "I see it too," a woman exclaimed. Now that most people were off to one side of the train car, I took it as my chance to look out the other side to get a glimpse of where we were. That's when I saw it. 2 yellow glowing eyes in the distance, just glaring at us. At me, and then another pair of eyes, close to the other except nearer to the train, and then a third, and a fourth, and they were moving closer. I backed away from the glass, scared out of my mind. Sounds of panic from the passengers who were looking out the other window confirmed that they were seeing the same thing. And then from the darkness, I saw something fall from the sky and land on the ground right next to the window. I could have sworn it was the silhouette of a person. The pairs of yellowed eyes ran towards the dropped prize, and although I could barely see what they were, what I saw was enough. They were large, grotesque creatures, a nightmarish fusion of an 8-legged spider and a malevolent goblin. Their elongated limbs resembled the twisted branches of dead trees. Tattered and torn remnants of what once might have been clothing clung to its emaciated body, adding an unsettling touch of humanity to the unearthly horror. The fallen object proved itself to be a person when it suddenly stood up and limped to the window, revealing the face of the car attendant. He was terrified and placed his hand on the window, wishing he could get inside. The other passengers beside me screamed. He was then dragged to the ground by the creatures, and his screams pierced the windows as he was consumed. And then one of the creatures looked up at me, meat hanging from its mouth. Rows of needle-like teeth protruded from its twisted maw, creating a nightmarish smile. "We need to get out of here. We need to get this train moving," I said to myself and began running to the next train car door. I opened it and almost fell 4 feet onto the railroad below, into the darkness. There was no train car. It led straight outside. Creatures outside noticed me and immediately began to crawl towards me, so I quickly slammed the door shut. The creatures were crawling all over the roof of the train car now, and I began to run back to the first train car. Just as I made it to the door, the train car I was in lifted, and I could feel it begin to levitate off the ground. I barely made the jump as the train car creaked and moaned, escalating into the air. People gasped, and I turned to see the train car I had just jumped from flying higher and higher into the air, creatures crawling all over it. And then it suddenly disappeared into thin air. There was now dozens, maybe hundreds of the little creatures running around and running towards me. I closed the door and held my back against it, when I began to feel this train car also levitate. Having witnessed the vanishing of the other train car, I decided to run towards the back of the train and find an escape that way. However, the rear door of the car was locked, and I knew I would meet the same fate as the other passengers. The monsters ran all across the roof, emanating an unsettling symphony of creaks and hisses. As our train car soared into the air, the ground outside gradually receded from view. We were completely trapped with no escape, and these things were taking us somewhere. Then, in a blink of an eye, the scenery transformed, and a sensation of weightlessness enveloped me. The train car collided with the ground forcefully, and this time I couldn't prevent myself from tumbling over. After taking a moment to recover from the abrupt descent, I glanced outside, realizing the previous darkness had given way to the flickering shadows cast by torches hanging from a lofty ceiling in an expansive cavern. Near ours, other train cars lay silent and still, some overturned. They were all arranged around a central space, encircled by what appeared to be small clay huts. Suddenly, the goblin-like monstrosities swarmed through the front door in droves, climbing on the ceiling, walls, and floor. They leapt at passengers, shredding them with teeth and nails. As the goblins leapt and pounced, the remnants of shattered plates and spilled food painted a gruesome tapestry on the floor. The scent of iron mingled with the aroma of now spoiled meals, creating a nauseating blend that hung in the air. The scene was a bloodbath of screams and cries. Caught in the crossfire, I pressed myself against the wall, the cold metal offering a feeble barrier against the horror that enveloped the car. The passengers, their faces contorted in sheer terror, became helpless prey to the nightmarish creatures that showed no mercy. Still in the rear of the car, I ran to the closet and shut the door. I put my hands over my ears and squinted until they burned, waiting for the creatures to open the door and find me, kill me, never giving me a chance to see my wife or child. Seconds went by, and then minutes. I eventually opened my eyes and uncovered my ears. There were no cries, no wails of agony, no crunching of bones and flesh. It was quiet. I eventually creaked the door open to see daylight coming through the windows. When I went outside, I cried when I saw my wife standing there and hugged her until she had to pry me off. I don't have any answers. I'm not sure where the other train cars are, how I traversed time to witness it, or if anyone else knows what happened. Heck, maybe none of it did happen. Maybe it was all just a dream. Just a nightmare. Thank you for listening. You can handle another horror story, right?